Welcome to Peak Presence Leadership Origin Stories, episode number 5. Today, I have the privilege and honor of introducing my friend, CEO of Avera Packaging, Jeremy Horton. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks, TJ. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Jeremy, we've known each other a few months now. My profession gratefully requires me to connect with CEOs and leaders, and I've always had a curiosity because I look up to people in those types of positions and like, how does that actually happen? And that's kind of where the birthplace of this podcast to really help people understand how leaders think and more almost about kind of the journey than the destination. And I think that's where I'd like to start to kind of understand with you, Jeremy. What I know you were I believe, mechanical engineering major in college. You graduated in 2001. So think back, 2001, you're graduating. Did you have a vision in 20 years? I want to be CEO of a growing healthcare packaging company. Like how did that actually happen over that 20-year period?
No, that was never part of the plan, and in fact, being in this industry was not part of the plan. I wanted to go into aerospace. I love flying. I love airplanes, and that's kind of where I wanted to go. And fate kind of pushed me into the medical field, and I got to do engineering there. Be a design engineer and a process validation engineer, and do lots of different things in the engineering world. I was fortunate that my first job, really my first real job, let's call it enabled me to wear a lot of hats. So I got to experience a lot of different things, and I kind of saw what I liked and what I didn't like. And as I kind of rose up in my engineering career, a lot of in engineering, you kind of sometimes you get to this little fork in the road, and the fork sort of says, okay, you take the one path, you're going to end up being like a staff engineer, like this super technical guru who sits high on the mountain and and it becomes the technical answer for everything. And I knew kind of pretty quick that wasn't going to be my path. But the other path is sort of leads you into engineering management. And I felt that suited my skill set a lot more, my personality. And so that move into engineering management sort of came easily and naturally. But then, beyond that, it sort of went, okay, well, where do you go from here? And again, fate sort of pushed me into more of a business and operations role. The company I was in at the time had a vacancy open up, and the CEO said, "Hey, can we just do this for me for a while?" And so I did, and I found out that what, I really like it, and I think I'm actually a little bit better at it than I am at engineering. And so that sort of took me into the business side of things, and I really started to enjoy and understanding how the whole business worked, not just product development and creating the most whiz bang thing that we could, but just the overall intersections and overlapping that takes place within a business. I found I really enjoyed that, and that's so that move into operations, which was also a move into business, is kind of what led to me becoming a CEO.
So that's interesting. So it wasn't your plan. Your life steered way away from your plan. You wanted to help build planes and fly planes and whatever the case may
Yeah,
be.
yeah. I mean, it's just like you said. I mean, I feel like career movement is kind of a mix of opportunity, interest, and a little bit of good luck. And so, like I said, when I started in the medical field, it wasn't the plan. It was kind of just something to do. But later on, I sort of felt like this was my calling in life, for lack of a better word. I got immense satisfaction out of it, just knowing that I was doing things that were hopefully helping people, get better, live healthier lives, and things like that. And I found a lot of satisfaction doing that sort of a thing. Maybe probably more than I would have had I been, designing landing gear for airplanes or something like that.
That sounds pretty cool as well. What type, you kind of alluded to this. What type of role did other people have in this process? Because it sounds like someone identified, look, you might be a good fit doing this, and kind of instead of what you're doing. I imagine other people had a big part
Oh
in it.
yeah. Yeah. I've had some incredible mentors throughout my career. I can't thank those people enough. And hopefully I've expressed to them personally how much they meant to me, but I suspect I've probably fallen short. But just from my earliest days as a young engineer who really had no idea what he was doing, I had great mentors giving me career advice, job advice, personal life advice that in a lot of ways translates, I think, into your career, because at the end of the day, a company is just a group of people, and trying to work hard to make something happen. And so yeah, I mean, I've gotten more great advice than I can really talk about on the podcast, but there's some things that people have said, something that somebody has said comes to me every day, or something somebody has taught me comes to mind every single day. And so, yeah, I'm definitely, if I'm at a certain place, it's only because I'm standing on the shoulders of great people who kind of brought me up and helped me learn the ways and learn some philosophies and things like that that have kind of guided me and helped me be where I'm at today.
And that's pretty fascinating because again, it's a lot of people never get to that sort, which is neither right nor wrong. Not everybody wants to, but get to, the CEO type level. But I think those of us that haven't been to that level, we kind of look up and you think there's this person that kind of rose to the top and has this ego, but it seems to be universal. It's almost the opposite. Super humble people. It's probably like anything, right? There's probably people with massive egos, but super humble people for the most part. They're like, so many people helped me to get here. And I think it's a skill set though to be receptive of that help and be willing to ask for help as well. I think that's a sort of a unique trait that a lot of people don't have because you're admitting you don't know something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's like in to be successful in the role, there are times where you have to be that humble listener, and there are times when you have to be that assertive, doer. But I think the times when you have to be the humble listener are probably more than the times where you have to be that assertive doer. When you realize that you're surrounded by bright people, it's really your duty as the leader to let them be bright and to listen to what they're telling you, and and in a lot of cases act on what they're telling you. The CEO is not the dictator. You pay these people for a reason. You bring them in and you have them around you because they're good at something. And if you're not letting them be good at something, or not letting what they're good at influence your thinking, then you're missing out on a huge opportunity. And I can't think of a single successful CEO who doesn't do that very, very well. I mean, there are some who come in and, just, yeah, they want to lay down the law and put their fingerprint on it right away. And they have all the answers. And I'll tell you, they don't last long. That will only, that decisiveness sometimes gets mistaken for confidence, and, which is how sometimes people get to those roles. But, you don't last long if you're not putting a lot of stock into what the people around you are telling you.
On that note, what's the best advice that you've gotten in your entire career? What's one piece of advice you could
Wow.
share with us?
I don't know. I mean, finding one piece of advice, it kind of almost feels like it does a disservice to some of the other great advice that I've gotten. I think the best, but I think the one that I probably think about the most often is that if you've got the right people, those people inherently want to do a good job. Of good workers, the kinds that you want to have in your organization, is that they want to do well. They take pride in doing their jobs well. And if you've got people in your organization who aren't that way, then you've got the wrong people in your organization. So the best advice I ever got is look at people's jobs, figure out what obstacles are in their way, remove those obstacles, and then just get out of the way. Just get out of the way and let them do what they're best at. Because again, inherently they want to succeed. And if you just figure out what's keeping them from being more successful, remove that to the extent that you can, and then just get out of the way. There's no rule that says that, I've got to have my finger in every single thing that's going on in the business. I try not to. I try to be like, just let me figure that out. So as I meet with my teams and things like that, they'll tell you one thing I always ask. I say, give me kind of what are your two biggest headaches right now? Tell me what those two things are. And then I want to figure out if I can remove those two things or how we're going to remove those two things. And then I just stand aside. And let the magic happen. And I think that's probably the advice that I got that probably sticks the most with me on a day-to-day basis. And of course, there's tons of other advice that I got that I draw on when I need it. But that's one I think about like every single day. I think about all my people on my team, and I think, what's keeping them from getting what they want to do done, and remove it. And that's essentially what my job is. I am an obstacle remover. They do the real work.
An obstacle remover.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing you're saying there is by removing those obstacles, then you empower them to make their own decisions and achieve as much as they possibly can.
And that's part of what you're looking for in the people you put around you is if we remove those obstacles, do you have the drive, the determination, and the confidence to go ahead and execute that? I want everyone around me to have a clear plan for what they're doing, and what they need to get to, and we can develop that plan together. It's not like I'm just completely just push you out to sea and let you let you row around on your own. We want to figure that out together. But then, yeah, I mean, it's if we're doing that, then on a day-to-day basis, I really don't do much managing. I kind of just go where help is needed.
What's the right word then if it's not manager? What do you think would, if we could sum up one word, would
Helper.
helper? A
I'm a,
helper.
I'm a, I'm a, I'm a, I'm a helper of the people who are really down in the trenches doing the work.
Helper. That makes complete sense. What about stress? I mean, you still have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of people are relying on you to make sound decisions for the organization because it impacts them, their families, everyone. What do you do to manage stress on a day-to-day basis?
I don't know. That might not be, I might not be the best person to answer that question. I mean, yeah, if you think about it, I think overthinking it leads, when I overthink things, then it leads to a little bit more stress. That's a tough one. I think stress management, I, when I'm truly feeling stressful, I try to remember that things, what's it going to look like in a year or 2 years? We tend to get, bogged down in the problems of the day. And those problems are real and, they have to be addressed. And every day it's a new one. But you kind of stop to think, okay, in a year, what are we going to be saying about this problem when we look back at it? And most of the time you'll find that, yeah, this day-to-day problem really isn't going to make a difference in the long term. So, for example, you know, a customer is unhappy with something. They call you and they let you know that they're not pleased with something that happened. And that's stressful, especially, I'm a big customer service first type of person, and I really, really don't like getting those calls that we've dropped a ball, or there's a perception that we've dropped the ball, that we've done something wrong. That's one of the most stressful things that happens. But then I stop and think, okay, we're going to get through this. We're going to smooth it over. We're going to continue to have a good relationship. This is just going to be a bump in the road. In a year from now, we're going to look back on this and say, yeah, that really wasn't a big deal. Or, we're going to say, hey, this actually served to strengthen the relationship, or something like that. So I think a great way to deal with stress is just to look and say, okay, in a year or whatever time period you want to pick, how big a deal is this really, really going to be? And then for those things where you say, because there are things that come up that are going to be a big deal in a year or whatever time period, I choose to never tackle those alone. That's, I will always bring the team in, because again, it's usually a problem that involves multiple people. It's not a me thing. It's an us thing. And, bringing the team together really helps me manage stress, because again, I've got good people, really smart, great ideas. So they're not going to let me go ahead and make a horrible decision that's going to cost us, that's going to cost us for years.
So, and as you can manage your stress, right? Obviously, that's going to help the team kind of manage. It's just running a business, selling, and all that. That's just stressful. It's there's obstacles every step of the way.
Yeah. But I think it's like, it's like, I think the human condition is the right amount of stress. We almost, a lot of people almost, I don't want to say thrive off of it, but we kind of need that challenge and that little bit of headwind and push in our lives. I think about when you watch a great athlete or a great musician, or whatever sort of talents you like to consume in your life. You see the game, you see the championship, you see the concert that goes flawlessly and everybody's just in awe. But you don't see the work that happened behind the scenes that led up to that. You don't see the time spent practicing. You don't see, the musician playing their scales over and over, or cleaning their instrument or doing those things. You don't see the guy in batting practice, just hitting pitches over and over and so forth. And I think that's the kind of stress that people who like the challenge sort of rise to the occasion. So in the CEO's role, where maybe we don't have that performative moment where where everybody stands and cheers for you, but you think about like a board meeting that goes really, really well, where the company's doing great and things are humming and so forth. The moments that lead to that are the batting practice moments, right? Those are the moments that are maybe a little bit stressful. But I think a lot of people actually kind of embrace that challenge. And I'm not saying that like that it's always a healthy amount of stress. It's not. But I think we need a little bit of that just to keep us a little bit uncomfortable, because it keeps us moving and growing. If there's no resistance, there's no growth. So
it is how growth happens. That's a good way to put it. So obviously in life, if we wait until we're ready to do things, we'll never get anything done. There's a lot of examples, right? If you wait until you're ready to have kids, you're never going to have kids. If you wait until you're ready to be a CEO, you're never going to be a CEO. So Can you talk just a bit about, I'm sure people have asked you over your career to do things where you're like, wait, how, maybe you didn't quite feel ready, but then you just stepped into it and did it anyway. Like what does that process look like for you?
Yeah, it's I think every time I've taken a quote unquote step up in my career, I felt inadequate. I felt unprepared and unready. I remember when I was when I got my first CEO role. Well, it was before I got the offer, but I kind of we knew it was coming, right? We knew it was happening, and I was terrified. I was I was stressed out. I had a headache. So I called one of my mentors and I said confidentially, here's what's going on. Cause I was already employed. I was doing something else. And I said, I'm getting courted to be CEO of this company. And I think it's going to happen. And I said, I just don't feel ready. I said, I just don't know if I've done everything I need to do to get prepared, because all I see when I look at the role is I see the decisions I'm not prepared to make. I see the gaps of things I don't understand. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to be the guy. And he said something really profound. He said, the fact that you are calling me, telling me that you're not ready tells me that you're ready.
Hmm.
And it goes back to that humility thing you were talking about a few segments ago, right? That if you come in thinking you've got all the answers, you're probably not going to be successful. And so I think that was one thing that really helped me was that just knowing that I wasn't ready is probably the best way I could have been ready, because again, I was willing to, I came in with mouth closed and ears open and ready to listen, ready to learn, ready to trust great people that I had around me. So yeah, I think everywhere I've gone, and people talk about, fake it till you make it and things like that. And there's some truth to that. There's always some elements of the business that you won't understand. That the CEO is supposed to be so good at so many different things. And the fact is nobody is.
Hmm.
We have our areas of strength and we have our areas where we're not as strong. But again, fake it till you make it means surround yourself with the right people, shut up and listen to what they say. And generally, if you've got the right people and you do that, you're going to be okay.
Okay, so that response, it actually kind of made me emotional. It reminded me when before this career, I was selling medical devices. So I
I
was
remember.
in operating rooms, and talk about feeling not ready. Right. I got the job, and my manager at the time, there were some surgeons were already using our products. He's like, go to this specific hospital and just go in the room as they're operating on the patient. I'm like, I can't walk in as they're doing surgery on a patient. And there's like this whole process. You got to figure out like how you get scrubs, how do you get access to the OR, how do you do this? And then I figured all that out after like a couple hours of just like running around in circles. And I'm just pacing back and forth outside this operating room where I look in and they're doing surgery. There's a patient on the table. And I call my mentor. I'm like, I don't think I can do this job. I cannot walk in this room. Like they're gonna be like, who the heck is this guy? And in my mind, everyone's gonna turn around and look at me, and I'm just gonna be like, and he told me kind of what he said. The fact that you are thinking about it means that you care, which is a good thing, and it means you're just not all ego. It's humility. He's like, the surgeon knows more than you. The nurses, the techs, they all know way more than you do. They're using your products. You're there to just support if there's an issue with your product. That's the only reason you're there. So he's like, just don't act like you know more than anybody else. Go with a curious, humble attitude. But you do belong if you walk in that way. So he's like, use that to your advantage. Kind of like you were saying, of not feeling adequate. And that was like the foundation of a very rewarding career in medical device sales.
That's a great example. And you saw that, in that environment, the operating room environment, you are not the alpha dog, right? But in other environments, you are the alpha dog. That's the thing that makes leadership so interesting, is leadership changes depending on the situation. You think about like, I've had a little side career teaching skiing. I teach, I do some ski instructing on the weekends and things like that. And I've had some really, really interesting and powerful people in my classes. And it's funny to see these people. Like I've had people who are, generals and admirals in the military and things like that. And they're up there, and I'm thinking, wow, you command battalions of troops, but here on the mountain, you're not the alpha dog. You're in my world now. When I'm in your world, you're the alpha. It's just, leadership is so environmentally and situationally sensitive. Really interesting.
Do you want to share just a little bit about what your team has built there at Avera, and kind of what Avera is offering and what you're working towards?
Yeah. Avera is an interesting company. It's about 40 years old, family founded and run business that did quite well in the general thermoforming space. So thermoforming is basically taking a sheet of plastic, heating it up to the point where it gets soft, and then forming it into a mold to make a shape the shape. You see it all the time in your life. Take out food containers, the things you buy like grapes and cherries in at the store. If they're not in a bag, they're in a clear tray with a clamshell lid that folds. That's all thermoform. And so this was a general thermoforming business. The company sold the business several years ago to a private equity company. The private equity company brought me in and said, "Hey, we want to turn this more from become less of a general purpose thermoformer and focus in the medical field," which is why they came for me because my background in medical devices, they wanted kind of my understanding of the regulatory world and my understanding of the business world in medical device and so forth. So I came in and with that directive, and it was interesting because I kind of knew from the get go that if we were going to narrow our focus, our industry focus, we were going to have to expand our offerings. You're not going to grow if you're going to, focus on one piece of the pie with your current technological offerings. So then we started looking at what can we expand into? What other adjacent technologies and practices can we expand into? So we've formed a lot of partnerships with companies that do things related to our space, so that we can kind of be a one-stop shop for our customers, rather than them calling us and saying, "Hey, we need a packaging solution and we can only offer one small piece of it." Now we're able to offer the complete solution, and we've done that through strategic partnerships. Last year we acquired a great company called Zine Medical Technologies, who does a lot of packaging, and then they also do a lot of device design, regulatory work, and things like that, which has been a great addition. A lot of great synergies with what Avera does. We're still kind of in the integration phase with that acquisition, but that's been a really transformative one for us, and our customers really like that they can call one person and say, "Hey, I gotta get some I need packaging for my product," and rather than having to manage 10 different vendors, they only got to manage one. And so their one phone call to us will get you everything that you need, all the way from the packaging materials themselves to somebody to put your product in the packaging and close it up, label it, send it to sterilization, get it back, distribute it. We can do all those things. And that's been great for our customers because, again, much simpler, much less headaches from the vendor management side of things. But then also great for us because now, instead of just selling you one component, we can get a bigger piece of the pie, so to speak. So it's been really exciting and great in that regard. And we're definitely on the up, and the future looks really exciting. I'm really excited about it.
It sure does, and I've kind of followed it, and I've gotten to know quite a few people on the team there, and it's just like you started at the beginning. It's good people, and that's the key. Because the more and more I have these discussions, integration is a challenge. I mean, there's just a lot going on, right? And people's roles are shifting, and everything's shifting, and everyone's kind of finding their place and how they best bring value. I think you guys certainly, at least the people I've met, have the right people working on it.
Yeah, I got a great team. Very proud of the group.
I think in a nutshell, it was actually pretty fantastic. If I could sum up kind of your leadership philosophy and almost how you approach being a CEO, it's started with and still is the willingness to ask for help. That's still a part of it. But then you said the key is helping. So you're not just asking for help. Now you're giving back and you're helping everyone possible, anyone that you can offer help to by removing obstacles. So helping and asking for help, consistent action.
Yeah.
Because fear and insecurity, just like life, it's going to be a part of it, but you just keep moving forward and keep taking action, and great mentorship.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good summary of things. Also, I'm a big believer in process. And we have this discussion around here all the time, that we build processes so that those who come after us will kind of see what we do. But I'm always telling people, if you've got a process, you need to follow it. It exists to be followed. And the number one thing that people say, the yeah, but that you hear is, well, there's so many things that are one-off, or outstanding occurrences that happen that just require you to not follow the process. And my response to that is, well, that means our process isn't right. Our process doesn't account for those one-offs, those outliers that occur every once in a while. And so I'm quick to tell the team, we're not a huge business. We don't have to go fight City Hall, because you know what? We are City Hall. We make the rules. So if the process isn't working, let's go ahead and change it, right? I have no problem with changing processes. I love changing processes. But whatever but whatever process we land on, we got to follow it until it no longer works for us. And then again, we go ahead and change it. So people tend to do well, especially individual contributors tend to do really well with process. They're, it's normative, it's predictable. It helps them. They kind of know what's coming in a lot of cases. So I would add some process to that. It can't all just be, this, ready, fire, aim approach to management. There has to be some process and some consistency, or else people that contributes a lot to their stress if they kind of don't know, what's coming and what to do.
Well, there you have it, everybody. So I think my takeaway, if you have aspirations to be a CEO, maybe that's not really the way to do it. Maybe start by being a CEO in your own life. Take ownership of kind of your own world right now. At least that's what I heard, because I think it's very difficult for a lot of people to ask for help. So be willing to ask for help and seek guidance, but also a reminder that I got is just seek to bring value to those around you. You don't have to be a CEO to do that.
Yeah, I think the organizations that work the best are the flattest. Rarely at Avera do we ever go to the org chart. If we're going to the org chart, there's usually a problem. Okay, so it's like, look, I tell our team all the time, I don't care where the right answer comes from. I don't care if it comes from me or from you or from the person who cleans the building. Okay, the right answer is the right answer, and we win together, or we lose together. It really doesn't matter. So we try to build this organization where everybody's really on the same level. Not because, and that doesn't mean everybody has the same job or the same role, but we're all on the same level in terms of how we interact with each other, who gets listened to, whose ideas get implemented, and how decisions are made. And I found that really works. And you said it, TJ, be the CEO of your own life. And I found it in my life that works extremely well. When I look at my family, my kids. My kids were always at the same level as my wife and I, right? Their input was, we try. I mean, it's not always this way, 'cause sometimes, because kids, their brains are still developing and all that good stuff. And the rational decision making is not always there. I think, you're a father, that. But to the extent that they're capable, they have the same weight in the family as everyone else. When we're deciding what we're going to do this weekend or a trip we're going to take, what they want is at least as valuable, or if not more valuable than what the grown-ups want. And I sort so you look at that. Not that you should treat your family like a business organization, but you kind of can. And how do you want that to look? And I found that flatness there. Without the quote unquote org chart in the family really helps things go smoothly. Kids thrive when they feel like they're an equal, that they're not a pawn in the game, that they're just that they're on the same level as the rest of the other players. Like I said, it works in organizations, it works in families, it works in whatever group activities that you're part of in your personal life. It works well. It makes people feel good.
And that's powerful, right? Because then work can be looked at a little bit differently in that light as well. It's not separate from the rest of your life. It's just another extension of how you're living life.
Yeah.
Ideally,
right.
I mean, I'm sure if I talk to your wife and kids, they're going to say the same thing. If you talk to my wife, she's like, "When does the brain stop developing?" Because his seems to still be developing.
Well,
Like, I'd rather go to the kids than him for a lot of our decisions.
Well, that's the great thing about group decision making, and why I said earlier that critical decisions, we don't make those in a vacuum, because none of us makes perfect decisions. Even if our brains, even if you're old like me and your brain, isn't still developing, you're still fully capable of making bad decisions. So at least with a group, you have that safety net, because the chances are you're not all going to make a bad decision at the same time. So there's humility in recognizing that you don't always do it right. And there's this tendency to think, oh, the CEO is infallible. It's not that way. So surround yourself with good people, involve them in the decisions that you're making, the critical decisions. And like you said, good people working in a group with the same goal in mind generally will make the right decisions. I don't have to worry about that.
This was fantastic for me. I know I learned a ton. Hopefully some others will learn a ton as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me on. I'm glad to be here.